Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So, I completely forgot that New York Comic Con was coming up. I was convinced it was the end of October. It's actually quite early in October, as you can see here, 6th to the 9th. And because of that, we are less than a month out, meaning we actually have the full schedule for New York Comic Con. So what Avatar stuff is on the schedule? If you search Avatar on the panels and screening section, you get 3 results. Avatar Braving the Elements Pod, Inside McFarlane Toys Multiverse, and Water, Earth, Fire, Air, continuing the Avatar legacy. So, Braving the Elements podcast, publishing panel, and McFarlane have mentioned Avatar in their panel as well. So let's go into that. The McFarlane panel is going to be on Thursday, and basically it just is saying that they're including Avatar in their list here. They just have Avatar included and we don't really know what else. Now, this is interesting because obviously their last wave that they announced just a bunch of months ago is already, I guess, out technically. And I think most people were not super excited by it because with the larger scale figures, it was just Book 1 Aang again, Book 1 Zuko again, but with better faces, so that was a bit disappointing to see. The Sokka is new. In terms of smaller scale figures, they only released a 2-pack that's just Avatar State Aang again, and then Blue Spirit Zuko, which is the only new one here. But no new kind of like single release smaller scale figures. And then, surprisingly, the Fire Nation Komodo Rhino. But no Fire Nation soldier to go with it. So an odd selection that just feels like, especially with the larger scale figures, like, hey, we kind of got some of this wrong. Let's just do this again and start again. So immediately the expectation here would be do some new characters. That's the main thing you need to do here with this. With the larger scale figures, you're still very early on. You have to do Katara. Katara, I think, basically has to be next. You have to talk about doing those sort of characters. I think Katara, Iroh, Azula, they're the really obvious other characters here. With the smaller scale figures, they've already done Toph and Iroh. So what would be next for this? Obviously they can do redos of characters. They have to do like a Book 3 Aang, a Book 3 Katara. In terms of other characters, they haven't done an Azula yet, so I would assume Azula has to be coming next for the smaller scale line. What else? Other than that, I think you're talking about, like, do they go for the past avatars? Do they do, like, Roku, Kyoshi? Do they do Suki next? Mei, Ty Lee? Or are they going to go down the road of, like, say, Loyal Subjects, where they decide to do sort of, like, Jet and some of those other characters? So we see, like, Boomy and those type of characters. We don't really know, but I hope that this is a little bit more of exciting Avatar announcements, and who knows, they might even finally announce their Korra stuff that we've been waiting for. We know they have the license for Korra. That was part of the initial announcement, so maybe they'll have some Korra stuff, but they're still pretty early with Avatar. Other than that, will they announce another animal figure? I think that would be cool. Like, obviously a dragon or Badgermole, I think, will be the obvious next ones to go for, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, let's get into this one. Water, Earth, Fire, Air, continuing the Avatar legacy. We've heard that title before. They've used this for quite a few panels. So this is going to be on the Friday of the convention, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Abrams Books, Dark Horse Comics, and Magpie Games. So this is the exact same lineup as the publishing panel from San Diego Comic Con. And other than that, it's just a generic description here. Join publishing's creators and writers of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra to explore the past, present, and future of this beloved world. So they haven't said who's there, but I'm guessing they're going to have someone from each of the companies there. And then they say writers, but I'm guessing one of them is at least probably Tim Hedrick, if that because that makes too much sense, of course. Will there be anything here? Surprisingly, the panel at SDCC actually delivered us some news. They announced the Azula in the Spirit Temple comic with cover. They announced that there is going to be a Korra comic trilogy, but they didn't show off anything about it. So Might this be now, like what, 3 months on? Might this be the time where they can actually show us maybe the first cover from that, reveal what the title is, give us an idea about what that is about? Otherwise, I guess they're going to talk about Patterns in Time, which will be coming out, Turf Wars Omnibus Edition. There's not a ton for Dark Horse to talk about otherwise, unless they go over those announcements again, maybe go into a little bit more depth on Azula and the Spirit Temple. But the problem with that is that that's coming out like middle of next year. They said summer 2023, so that's going to be probably a July release if we're lucky. Meaning that the core comic, the first one, is probably going to be like, say, August, September, November, probably at the earliest or something like that. So we're still roughly a year away from that one, but they feels like they need to say something. Might this be the time where they finally properly go in depth on what Beast of the Four Nations is? Because that book does need to be announced. They need to say something about that, because it's getting silly that we know about it so long, but they refuse to acknowledge it. And then I think it's probably too early for them to announce anything other than that stuff we already know about, because if they already have basically early announced stuff effectively for late 2023, the only other thing you could maybe hope for coming out of this is that maybe they announce if there is another Avatar comic to follow up the Azula one. Because again, it's a character one-shot that they're doing there. So are we continuing that? Is it going to be another trilogy of one-shots from Faith Aaron Hicks and Peter Wortman? So they might actually do something like reveal maybe what the next one is, what character they're going to focus on after Azula, which is an interesting decision, because now we're getting into the situation where this would be like the 5th one of these, and you've done quite a few of the main characters already. You know, the likes of Aang and Zuko are already main characters, so do they need stories? Sokka, I think, of the main cast would make sense to get a focused solo story. I would like that. Otherwise, you probably have to choose one of the other cast members. I'd be fine with like a May focus, a Ty Lee focus, Iroh focus. There's a lot of options you could do. Straight away, Azula and the Spirit Temple, without knowing exactly what it's about, looks like it's going to be a little bit more insightful into her character, that they're filling in a gap that's actually interesting with her. So might they continue that and do more of that, but who knows. So Dark Horse are in a bit of a weird spot where they probably should say something more, but you never know what they actually will do. Abrams' books, again, weird situation here, where what happened with Comic-Con was that the book was like just out. Yang Chen Book 1, Dawn of Yang Chen, was just out like days before, that week basically of the convention. So they weren't really going to talk about it much. And from what I could see from the coverage of this panel, I don't really think Abrams or Magpie had much to say during the panel ultimately. But we're a few months on now. I doubt they're going to have a spoiler discussion about the book. So other than saying it exists, the only other Avatar stuff that Abrams have is the calendar, but I don't think they're going to promote that too heavily, especially because most of it is just like the same as last year. So will they announce in some way, like give us the title for Yang Chen Book 2? It's definitely possible, because if it's going to have a schedule similar to the two Kyoshi books, we found out about the Shadow of Kyoshi not that long after we got Rise of Kyoshi. So there's definitely an option here for us to get some news on that front. Otherwise, it kind of feels a little bit here like Abrams' books doesn't really have anything to go on at this panel. Similarly, Magpie Games, from what I could tell, there was basically nothing from them in the panel before. And what are they going to do here? Because they've just announced yesterday with their update that they're finally getting around to the whole shipping stuff. I'm guessing they'll focus on the whole idea of their pre-orders for the book are going to go live publicly, and so this will sort of be that transition to Avatar Legends is not just a Kickstarter, but it's an actual product that exists and people can get whenever they want. But will they say anything about the other two books? The Republic City kind of expansion book, the Spirit World expansion book that were also announced. Obviously, the delays in general to the project have to be added on to this. So whatever they said before is likely not going to happen. So Who knows? Will they confirm that they're going to do a Kickstarter for both those books? That to me would be the most effective way to do it. Rather than having a separate Kickstarter for this book and then a few months later having a separate Kickstarter there, just have a Kickstarter for both books, mention that it's going to be like one's going to be released quite a bit before the other. That feels like the best way to do it, ultimately. And that way they can have maybe some extras that go with the first book and some extras that go with the second book. That seems like a nice way to do it. It won't be as big in scale as the initial one, but they know what they're doing a little bit more. So, you know, there are options here for the publishing panel. But a lot, I think, is on Dark Horse. It feels like they're either going to deliver or they're going to say nothing. And it's the same with pretty much everyone. Was SDCC just the sort of situation where like they felt like they had to say something because otherwise they had nothing? But now that they've said that, do they need to say anything more? But anyway, then we have this Avatar Braving the Elements podcast Thursday. So it's quite early on in the convention. Live podcast appearance by, so very, very, very general here. But I'm assuming Janet Varney and Dante Basco will be at the convention. So, this was the sort of surprise thing of SDCC. They actually had some Avatar Studios exclusive news. Now, to be fair, it was a video that they basically, I guess, played in the convention at the start because Janet Varney wasn't able to attend SDCC. It was very minimal. It was literally just the announcement that the first movie is Aang and Friends focused, is ATLA focused. So it was very much that, like, if you hadn't been paying attention to all the news, it's like, well, yeah, that would be the obvious guess. Any more details to it? Any visuals? No. It was the bare minimum new announcement. So now that they've sort of set that precedent that previously I think everyone had ignored these panels because they never had news, now they've shown us that they can have news at these. Are we going to see something said at this panel? I would like to see the kind of the cycle of news really begin and be like, okay, we got a scoop last time out. We can tell you a little bit more here. I still don't think it will be anything resembling a full-on Avatar Studios news blowout. If there is anything, it's only going to be a slight tidbit. And I think it's stuff like if they announced the name of the movie. If they showed one visual, like just like a kind of a teaser poster for that movie or something like that. Just something that has a visual or something more concrete that we can latch onto. Other than basically having to call whatever the first project is the untitled ATLA movie from Avatar Studios. That's the sort of problem here. Like in terms of like Legend of Zelda situation of like Nintendo just announced the name of that game and they were hyping up the whole idea of like there's spoilers in the title. That's where we're leaving it until later to say it. Then they reveal the title and there's not actually that much to it. So I feel it's just a case of if you know what the title is, tell us so we can finally just have this kind of clear-cut idea of we know what we're doing, this is what's happening here. Again, I don't think there'll be a lot of news. It will probably just be something like a repeat of what we got before, but I would like to see it be this more continuous thing now. Set the stage that, okay, 2022 is not Avatar Studios' year. It's not the news blowout year, but you have to say something. But set the stage that for, say, 2023, we're probably expecting the conventions next year to be the very, very detailed, we've got all the information panels. And so I think you need to set that standard here that, okay, we gave you what little we have here, even though it's still quite early, but come back next year because we're probably going to have the trailer. Like, say, SDCC has the full reveal of the full lineup of the first wave of Avatar Studios stuff, and then, like, New York Comic Con or something like that has the first trailer or something like that. I can see that maybe being the way they go with it, but you have to set a bit of a standard first. So that's all the New York Comic Con stuff. Next, Diamond Select Toys. Every so often post a blog where they do some Ask stuff. And this has happened a few times now. This will be very familiar if you've been following this. So, someone asked a question. I've purchased all the Avatar Gallery diorama characters. Is there going to be more, such as Toph, Sokka, and Iroh? Their answer is, I cannot confirm characters right now, but yes, we are working on more Avatar Gallery pieces. This, I believe, is either the third or fourth time this has been said, pretty much exactly. They're confirming they're working on multiple other ones. They just can't say anything more beyond that. Now, this is getting a little bit frustrating because the Zuko came out like a year ago at this point. I checked back. I posted my review of the Zuko one, which was the third of the 3 that have been released so far, back in November 2021. And even then, I'm guessing I got mine like a month or 2 after the actual technical release date. So we're probably already at a year since then. And we've been waiting to see what they're going to do. And yeah, I think those characters make sense. Toph, I feel, almost has to be the next one, just so you complete the elemental cycle. Sokka makes a lot of sense to be the next one. And after that, you kind of have to go Iroh, Azula, or Suki, I think, as the next one. Otherwise, probably you go for a different avatar. And then you're maybe getting into some of the more minor characters. But there's still a lot that they have to do. If they're doing them in maybe groups of 3, I can definitely see Sokka, Iroh, and Azula probably being the next group. But I would love to see Suki included. Like, the thing with Sokka is, of course, that he's not going to have a crazy elemental background. So might they make up for that by maybe doing Sokka and Suki in one statue, like the 2 non-bender members on one? That way you can just have maybe a little bit more of a basic kind of base. You make up for that by the double statue. Who knows? We'll see what they do with it. But it is nice to know this, because otherwise it does seem like Diamond Select have basically given up on their action figure line. They said this in a previous Ask DST, but they're like, we're monitoring the market to see what happens. And obviously the Blue Spirit Zuko and Iroh have been heavily delayed. I think they were meant to be out much earlier in the year. And they're still not out yet. And they might even be delayed into 2023. So I'm pretty convinced at this point that that will be the last of those Diamond Select figures. I think they just haven't really worked out. I don't think people are super happy with them for the most part. And it's better they focus on these, which I think have been, in general, much better received. It's frustrating, of course, to see this happen, in that they were basically first to market with Avatar action figures, but they've now seemingly just fallen to the wayside as the other companies have got the license. So I wonder what happened in all of that here. They had such an opportunity to really, like, get Avatar fans on their side, but they kind of just missed it in all of this stuff. So that's an interesting one. Avatar is becoming more and more popular, but for them, they can't seem to justify doing them anymore. So that's that. And then the last piece of news here is just that there has been a delay to the Team Avatar Treasury boxed set. So this is the collected version of Katara and the Pirate Silver, Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy, and Suki alone. Doesn't seem like they're doing a library edition. Instead, they're just collecting the 3 books in this kind of a nice box. You get a poster, and that's going to be it. It was previously scheduled for, I believe, the 4th of October. It is now coming out on the 1st of November. So it's received about a month's worth of delay. Which I don't think this is going to get continuously delayed over and over again. This feels like adjusted because of, the paper shipping COVID stuff still. That doesn't, to me, seem like a super extreme date, but it is sort of notable that other reprint books have not been delayed as heavily. Like, this actually hit its date. The book 3, was it the book? I think the book 3 and 4, Korra art book second editions, both were only 1 or 2 weeks delay. So this getting a month delay is a little bit more than what we've been expecting recently, but is still kind of within range of, I suppose, what I think is normal and maybe expected in the current kind of climate for everything. So, that is the news. So, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. 2 main Avatar panels, and then McFarlane seem like they're going to have some Avatar stuff at their panel. What do you think will happen at New York Comic Con? SDCC surprised us. We went in not really expecting anything. It surprised us. I think we are now going to be going into New York Comic Con expecting something, but we'll probably be surprised in the worst way, where they probably won't have anything and we're going like, what? Why can we never predict these things? Like, the investors event, Viacom Investors Event 2020, we were kind of like, maybe there'll be something. Avatar Studios gets announced. Then the 2021, and then this year's investors event, we're kind of like, surely they have to say something here. Doesn't even get mentioned. So I think in general, we as a fandom have sort of been very confused about the approach with Avatar Studios of like, we just can't predict when they for sure will or won't talk about it. So I want to believe that they'll continue the news and being a bit more open, but you never know. So thoughts on that? When will we finally see the next gallery dioramas and just what's going on with Diamond Select and Avatar? And then do you have any thoughts on the delay to Team Avatar Treasury? Other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.